Quickly want to get in one other name that entered the news cycle over the weekend, and that was former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler. We haven't talked about her in a long time. And President-elect Donald Trump, he's cherry-picking who's going to serve alongside him, and she is one of them selected to head up his inaugural committee. Any thoughts there, Brian, on that?
Huge deal. This is a huge deal. I went to the Georgia Tech rally that Trump did the week before the election, and she was front and center. She had a speaking role in that event, very much, arm in arm with Trump. He pointed her out from the podium when he was speaking. She and Jeff Sprecher, her husband, are some of the biggest donors to Trump this cycle, though through the campaign and the third-party groups. Spent a lot of money on turnout operation here in Georgia, one of the swing states. And she and Jeff Sprecher were the ones who hosted all of the big high rollers the night of the debate, which was in Atlanta back in June. So she obviously is a part of the central nervous system of the Trump operation, something that she has worked very hard at. And look, this is the spoils. Like, she gets this, and she has put herself in a spot where they took a risk. They put their neck out, and now it's going to pay off. And I think when you are the co-chair of the inaugural, and by the way, the other co-chair is Donald Trump's best friend, right? So that kind of shows you where she is in this orbit. You are in line for something really, really big. The word on the street amongst Republicans who know is that she had talked about ambassadorship to the Vatican. She's a very devout Catholic, someone often seen at Christ the King by herself praying in the sanctuary. Something very important to her. She was wearing a big crucifix on the night of the election in the photos that she posted. But the Vatican doesn't really rank up there with the top spots. It's a great gig. You get a castle. I mean, you literally get a castle. That's what the ambassador gets there. So that's pretty sweet. Not that Kelly Loeffler and Sprecher need a castle. They can build their own. But she may get the ambassadorship to the United Kingdom. I mean, play the trumpet, play the royal trumpet for Kelly Loeffler here. This is a really big deal if that's what she got. And Trump has made it very clear to the incoming Senate leadership, whoever that's going to be, I don't want any hijinks. You're going to push my appointments through. We saw with Biden, Calvin Smyre, a great American, who we all love, Calvin Smyre, never got confirmed for an ambassadorship, and he was nominated for 2. It's ridiculous. What a broken system. Let's just get these people confirmed. Let a president put his people in these ambassadorships. So Kelly Loeffler is sitting really pretty. A couple of other names. Josh McCoon, the state Republican Party chairman. Donald Trump loves him.
So he wasn't begging for that position over the weekend in Florida. He didn't go there begging, right?
No, they are very close. I don't think it's begging when you are sitting there talking with the president-elect, because the president-elect appreciates you. Josh did everything that he wanted in Georgia, delivered a win. I don't think that Josh would be quite in the favor he is if we had lost Georgia, but the fact that he did, Josh is going to get something really big, I bet you. State Senator Brandon Beach, a big Trump loyalist, never wavered. Certainly was one of his, attack dogs in the post-2020 election era. Look for him to get something in Washington as well. And former Ambassador Randy Evans, who was ambassador to Luxembourg under Trump, he was at Mar-a-Lago on election night there with Trump, part of the lawyer team. Look for him to get something similar, maybe something better than Luxembourg, which too seems like a pretty sweet little gig, right? I mean, what's going to go wrong in Luxembourg? It's just the wealthiest per capita country in Europe, so he'll be getting something good too.
Yeah, I know Josh McCoon wasn't there begging. I was teasing. I know he was in Florida just having a conversation saying he wants to lead the Republican Party. I know him, and he's always kind to WABE and giving us
he's very
he really is. Always open and always available, so we appreciate him for that. I don't know, Tharon, what are your thoughts? President-elect's moving very quickly, isn't he?
This is the one thing about this podcast. We've been doing it now for 9 years. There have been times where I come on the Monday after the win, Lisa and Brian has to do what I'm about to do, and that is just take it. I mean, you got to like just let him, take his victory lap. I mean, look, the names he rattled off. I mean, Kelly Loeffler. Look, shout out to Kelly. This Greater Georgia organization. I did flag this. She went to work right away after she got defeated. Shout out to Josh McCoon. Don't know him extremely well, off the air. But, whenever I'm on TV giving a Democratic perspective and B-Rob is out making a bunch of money with his clients, Josh and I are usually there. But, talk about a guy who literally left the legislature, came back and did well with the party. And in the Republican Party,
Right.
Georgia had their fights too. Randy Evans, I served with him over in McKenna Lawn, which is now Denton's. And then, look, Brandon Beach. I got to give Brandon some credit. He told me, Lisa, about a year ago. I mean, he did. And when he sees me, he's going to rub it in. But he told me Trump was going to be president. He said he's going to win. And you're right. I mean, he didn't waver. I mean, this is the game, Lisa. I mean, when you win, you can talk that junk, right? You can throw it in people's face, but when you lose it, you gotta take it. You got to be very humble. And so look at what the president-elect is doing. I mean, he named a woman as the chief of staff, which is the first time ever. What's her name again?
Super excited about her.
What's her name again?
Yeah,
B-Rob?
Susie Wiles.
Yeah.
She
She's the
looks
daughter
like
of,
she'll pull, if he's going off on a rail, looks like she'll pull him back.
yeah, she's the organizer, right? Yeah.
She looks like, she's no nonsense. Get back in this room. We're not going to do it this way. Yeah.
No, that's what and I think from what I understand, and again from Republican circles, is she said, Mr. President, I'm honored to do the job. Here's the deal. I am the gatekeeper. I'm not letting the kooks in. I'm not letting the crazies in. I determine who gets in the Oval Office to present you with ideas. And look, he said, absolutely. So she got a relationship of trust, and I think it's going to be real hugely important. She is widely and deeply respected in Republican circles. And fun side note, I didn't know this till last week, but she is the daughter of a voice that I grew up with as a young sports fan, Pat Summerall. Yeah, isn't that funny? Yes.
Wow.
She's Susie Summerall Wiles.
Oh, wow. Okay. We wonder where she came from, because it seemed like she just came out of the blue. But yeah, it seems like she's
been around.
She has what it takes. She
comes out of Jacksonville politics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, was working with Governor DeSantis, left his campaign.
Got pushed out by him.
Yeah, got put. Well, I was going to try to be political. Yeah, got pushed out by him. And what's the lesson learned here, Lisa, to our listeners, right? And Brian and I talk about this all the time. Somebody can be out in 2020 or 21 and back in 24, right?
Yeah,
and
man.
so I mean, this is
so
someone can be out, honestly, Lisa, in 2018, and then boom, 2020 election happens, and they're back in. So it goes back to my earlier point about this dysfunction and all this tension we have in the Democratic Party. Is one of the things that I'm trying to do is that we got to referee ourselves, right? We got to look within. What can we do better? But this president, like, go back to your original question. I mean, he's appointing chief of staff. He's doing press conferences. Elon Musk all up in the video dancing, all up in the meetings and stuff with the ambassadors. And Brian, I was going to go there, right? So Elon Musk, I mean, you want to talk about putting your money where your mouth is. I mean, Elon was just nonstop with Trump. And so, it's just, at least as we, transition on, I mean, look, it's just where the country is. And it goes back to my 5 L's. We got to listen. We got to learn, and we got to look within, and we just got to realize that maybe we're a little too elitist in our party. The way we handle people, how we handle each other, and how we talk. We got to get back to our basic retail politics, getting with the working class folks, because a lot of those folks, Lisa, who should have voted Democrat, right, policy wise, they chose to either stay at the couch, right. We had 10 million people in this country that did not vote, that were registered and should have voted, right? And so there are some people believe in Georgia. Had we had more Democrats vote, we could have probably gotten the margin closer. But the fact of the matter is that, look, the president-elect is going to have 4 years. We can talk about the charges. I think those charges kind of would dwindle. And by the way, I want to correct something I said on the show once before. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, B-Rob, while the federal charges may go away for Donald Trump and Georgia and other places, there's still a lot of states that have state charges against him. And so then it becomes what happens with those Supreme Courts, those appellate court judges that a lot of Republicans and some Democrats have appointed. And so you'll see that sort of manifest as we get closer and closer to the inauguration and afterwards.
Absolutely. As far as Democrat turnout, here's a fun fact to take away from the 2024 election. And this was generated somewhat by the large rural turnout that you saw in Georgia. You just saw the Republican base catch fire. 81% of active white voters turned out. That is a massive number. 65% of active black voters turned out. And that probably was a decisive margin, even though Trump did fairly well amongst black men. He still, she still got close to 90% overall of black voters. So a higher turnout there. Now, I will say the white voters overperformed, and the black voters, basically were where they normally are. They were where the electorate normally is. The one place where black voters overperformed was in Fayette County. They got into the close over 70% turnout in Fayette County. And guess what? They held Trump below the number that he got 4 years before. And that's probably why. So it's a combination there in Fayette of strong black turnout and some of these Hollywood types moving in there and, working around Trilla Studios.
Well, real quick, Lisa, I was the keynote speaker for the NAACP gala the Saturday before the election, so 2 Saturdays ago, and it was at Fayette County. And remember, Brian, you and I talked about this. I think I texted you. I was like, hey, did Trump win Fayette County in 2020? And it was close. And so you're right. The battleground county in the northern sort of region of Georgia is Fayette County, but we also saw some strength and some gains in middle Georgia. Southeast Georgia and southwest Georgia is really where, to Brian's point, I mean, guys, when you start hearing that 81% of registered active white voters voted in this election, therein lies the challenge for the Democratic Party. We not only got to get our base in line, but we got to get more white people. I mean, I'm just going to say it, right? And when you've seen us build winning coalitions in this state, it includes a lot of different demographic groups. And, the thing that the white voters did, and because I, talked to a lot of them, live with some of them, they weren't putting all these yard signs out. B-Rob, you and I talked a lot about yard signs, and people, they just went quietly, Lisa, into that booth, got their look card, popped it in, and boop, and they left, and they were like, nope, this is where we are. And so Democrats got to figure out, how do we get back to the middle? We better nominate a gubernatorial candidate in 2026, he or she, that can actually do what I call base plus. They got to be strong with the base, but you got to be able to get to the middle and with independence. Those stats that B-Rob just gave you, Democrats, wake up and listen to what this brother is saying. And I will say this publicly, B-Rob, you misread the turnout being high. I was right about that. You was wrong. You were right about the black male issue. Now, it's not as extreme as you'd like to say it was. I'm not gonna go that far. I mean, you may, you may, but no, Lisa, it wasn't until the Friday after where brothers now all of a sudden are emboldened. Vernon Jones, who goes to my barbershop. Yeah, he's riding up and down streets with Trump signs outside. I mean, so Lisa, I'm here to tell you, it's not as severe as Brian. The numbers they didn't hit where Brian predicted, right, Brian? They get up to 20+%. They did that.
He was close to it, though.
It was close. It was close. And so, this podcast, look, I will admit when I'm wrong, and I will admit when I'm right. But we got some work to do with the brothers. And then Latino sisters and brothers, I haven't spent a lot of time on y'all yet, but it's coming because y'all told me. You said that you were mad about Puerto Rico and mad about deportation. Right, I mean, really, though, and Brian, I gotta give you another credit. This is
and garbage,
and garbage, right? Yeah. Shit, man, they went in there. Nope, going with Trump. So it's just it's a lot of blame that can go around, but we're not gonna blame people. We're just gonna listen to them and try to figure it out. So, Brian, the black man, I got that. I got my brothers. At least I'm already working on it, bringing them in. We're gonna drink some Hennessy. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna be good. We're gonna get them back. It's only a few of them, not a lot of them. The majority of black men are still strong Democrats, but we do have a few.
When we're talking about predictions, good and bad, I do want to point out this because this is a minor thing, and this is obviously just
Fani Willis.
This is just Fani
Willis. Oh, leave her alone. She is the DA. Leave her alone. Leave her alone.
Lily, cue the tape. Play it now.
I think Fani Willis is going to underperform. I don't know how it's possible for her to lose in Fulton County in this environment. I would be interested to hear Tharon's thoughts. But she must be seeing something that ain't great, and she is going to underperform Kamala Harris in this race.
Nah, be wrong. You were right.
Last week, I made one prediction.
Say it.
One, I was like, Fani Willis has got an issue not only with Republicans but with some Democrats over prosecution of things, and she would underperform Kamala Harris. She underperformed her by 4 points. That is in a county as big as Fulton. That's a lot of people. So I think there's a course correction that she'll need to do. Obviously, these RICO cases have not gone her way. She needs to drop the election interference case completely. She can recover from that. She's going to lose in the appeals court in 2025 anyway if she moves forward. So the best thing for them to do here is drop that case. Tharon mentioned a minute ago the state and local cases. He's right. It's different than the DOJ regulations. I do think the New York Court of Appeals is going to throw out that Alvin Bragg case or overturn it. That was a paperwork misdemeanor that was turned into 34 felonies. And, if you want to talk about the turning point in the 2024 cycle, it was Alvin Bragg indicting Donald Trump on a paperwork misdemeanor for 30-plus felonies, and then the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Those two things took a party where we had, if you surveyed all Republicans in 2021, 2022, there was a 30-something% always Trump. Yes, he's my guy forever. Then there was another 40% or so that was, I love Trump. I appreciate what he did as president. It's time to give somebody else a chance. And then the smallest segment was never Trump, move on from Trump, don't like Trump. So the party was ready to have a next generation leader. And then he started getting arrested. And that was it. It was over. It consolidated support behind him. Democrats' overzealousness made him a martyr. And some of them were too cynical. They're like, we're going to make him a felon. That'll make sure that he has no chance of coming back. Well, joke's on you guys.
Boy. That really did, and now there's talk. What once he gets in office, he may pardon those who were.
He promised to. He promised to.
Convicted. Yeah, with the insurrection. So the tables turned. Really.
Lisa.
Very, very
sometimes
quickly.
Brian has got to sit here and let me talk to him about the culture, and we talk about rappers and Kirko, and
I learned a lot.
But I learned today.
It was a fair podcast.
He took me into the minds of white voters, white America, and how they reacted to this, sort of things that happened with Trump. So thank you, B-Rob, for letting me know what white people think. Yep. I don't profess to know that I know what they all think, but Lisa, I will also say this about Fani Willis. I have to do this. Yes, she did not. You're right, perform higher than Kamala Harris, but I think that she did have a lot of money thrown at her. A lot of people are trying to take her out, and she did survive it. And now how she moves forward would be very important. But we got a lot of work to do, Lisa. But we're gonna win in 26.
And we have a lot to talk about on 2026, kid. We got a lot to talk about. I mean, that field is going to begin to form in the next few weeks. Obviously, we know John Ossoff is going to be at the top of the ticket. The U.S. Senate race is above the governor's race on the ballot that we get. So we know who one character is, but the rest really are to be determined. I mean, it is. We're going to have an open governor's seat, open LG, open AG, open Secretary of State, possibly open agriculture, possibly open up insurance commissioner. I mean, it is wild, wild west. A lot of money is going to be spent. And, one thing that I was with a bunch of state senators and a couple state house members Saturday night at the Leadership Georgia thing, and they're all trying to figure out who's going to run. These are Republicans, obviously. The Democrats don't
Democrats
bring me into
they were in Savannah. Now, they were in Savannah, and we got to talk about that real quick, leadership changes, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I did see Chandra Harris from Senator Ossoff's office there. But, they need to have some internal conversations within the Republican caucuses about who's going to run for what. We don't need to have a cannibalization session. We also don't need to lose a lot of institutional knowledge from the state house or state senate in one cycle when many of them are not going to win going to the next level. So we need to keep some of those guys who know what they're doing and know how the wheels of the legislature work stay where they are.
Real quick to that point, Lisa, we're also going to have on November 14th some very important elections. I think November 14th is when the House Dems will select who their leadership is going to be. The Senate Dems this past weekend in Savannah. Couldn't make it, but definitely, was a sponsor of that event. Selected Harold Jones out of Augusta to replace Gloria Butler, who's been on this podcast before. And that's my boo. I got permission to call her my boo publicly from my wife and
Your
from
wife
her.
gave you permission.
Look, Lisa, they've met. They've met. They cool. She knows she old enough to be my grandmama. It's fine, but that's my boo. But keep an eye on what happens, and I don't know when the House is going to happen, B-Rob, but I know on November 14th, the leadership race is in the House. That will be the first, to his point, where you'll see the realignment, the posturing, the angling of what the state ticket is going to look like as far as candidates.
I was going to say, Georgia still has to be on good behavior because all eyes are going to be on Georgia, for some time now, for sure. Thanks, guys, for checking in. I tell you, it's been quite the week, and it's probably going to be some very interesting weeks ahead, as you indicated, Brian. So thanks for checking in for another edition of Political Breakfast.
Happy Veterans Day to all of our women and men in the military and for those who serve.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone who has worn the uniform of our nation.
Democrat being patriotic. Lisa, you see that? I'm making a change.
I love waving the USA flag.
USA.
You'll be quoting scripture next week.
That's next week. But today I'm being patriotic. No, but happy Veterans Day to everyone.
I told you, listeners, a change is coming. Okay, have a great week.